Hey everybody, it's Alexia from amysticspath, back with another video for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching. Now, this video is not a pick a card reading or a energy video. I really felt the need to kind of dial back on those messages for, this past week because of the video that I had put out for you guys for the new moon slash solar eclipse in Capricorn. I've intuitively I felt like that was a lot of information to digest, and I kind of really wanted you guys to be able to refer back to that video to really see and to understand what it is that I was expressing to you guys and the message that I was receiving, because I felt like it was so, so important. But I was having a conversation today, and I intuitively felt that I really needed to share this message with you guys. And it is about communication across the board, but communication as well within a relationship dynamic, whether that is with your spouse and or like your boyfriend or your girlfriend or whatever, or your kids or your aunt or your best friend or whatever it is. And this is all information that I have kind of analyzed and did my own research over my own relationship dynamics for the past year or so, as well as messages coming through from spirit. And the first thing that I want to talk about is how a lot of us as humans communicate from what I've seen. And a lot of it is that we are not communicating in the actual authenticity to understand the situation as a whole. We are often trying to express our own points, our own side, our own perception, our own reality to the other person so bad that we can, even the information that they're giving us, we're like, yeah, okay, but yeah, that's fine, but this is what I'm trying to say. And we're not actually factoring in the other person's perception, the other person's reality, the other person's triggers, or anything like that. We're only factoring in our own triggers, our own reality, our own perception. And when we actually talk about something, because a lot of times we find ourselves taking something happened, we feel a certain type of way about it. It might be a trigger for something that happened before because the energy feels the same. And then you just take that as what it is. You shove it down, or you cut somebody off, or you walk away from the situation because it felt like something that happened before. And even if that's the case, we still need to be able to go to the other person like, hey, this what happened, this is how I feel, this is how I took this is not okay, I don't like this. And then they can rebuttal and say, well, whatever was happening. And then often we find that what has gone down, what has happened was not the other person's intent, and they did not mean to make you feel that way. Maybe they did, maybe they were being sneaky, maybe they were being dishonest. But regardless, it's your duty to yourself and the happiness of what you want in your relationships to be able to communicate authentically and let somebody know, look, this is what happened, this is how I feel about it. And then they can then take that information and again respond and let you know where they are coming from. But we have to be open enough and realize and listen to what it is that they're saying, because if we're stuck on our side and we're stuck on in our perception, total Eight of Swords energy, being stuck in your own mental prison, that what they're saying you are not even factoring in to be truth, because it might not vibe well with you, or it might not be your reality or your perception. Just because it's not your reality and not your perception does not mean it's not valid, and that does not mean that that's not that other person's reality and that their perception. We need to be almost more understanding and more compassionate and nurturing with others. We're in this space of being so hard and so callous all the time. We have all of these walls built up, and we're just like hiding behind these walls. So there's things that are happening and we're not talking about them. We're not actually getting them off of our chest, and then they're just festering until you can't take it anymore. You're literally screaming on the outside. And when you're internally screaming, guess what? The next step is externally screaming. And then we're in a meltdown and we're freaking out because trust may not be there, communication may not be there, and we are just not even giving things the time of day to even really see what's going on. We're just, walls go up and then we're dismissing it and we're leaving it. But you're doing yourself a disservice, especially within relationships, and especially with so many people that are looking for authentic love. We have all of these relationships that just fall apart and just crumble, or people act out, or people lash out because they're not feeling loved, or whatever the case may be, because nobody's communicating. They're just taking these feelings that they have, these ugly feelings that they have, and kind of bottling them up, because maybe if you talk to somebody else, it's going to be a fight and things are going to explode because you see your side, they see their side, whatever. We have to kind of come and meet in the middle and say, okay, this is how I feel. And then the other person says, okay, this is how I feel. And then we meet in the middle and we see how that all meshes. And then we can kind of clear the air. And especially when we have so many relationships that fall apart, and it's literally time and time again, lack of communication or lack of empathy for somebody else. And lack of empathy, why? Because of trauma that we've been through, or frustration or anger, or only seeing your side, or only being sad about your side. Okay, especially when we are in like a romantic relationship and communication starts to fall apart, and then you're just shoving things down because you don't want a fight or you don't want to argue, and then there's an explosion, and then you're crazy because you're freaking out about something that happened 6 months ago, but it really bothered you and you didn't say anything. We can literally stop all of those fights that break out over bottled up emotions if we literally talk and communicate when things go down, as well as the energy of overthinking. Our brains are these electrical orifices, and they are always working. Your brain never sleeps. When you are sleeping, your brain is trying to talk to you through your subconscious. When you are daydreaming, your subconscious is literally coming to the forefront and talking to you. Your brain is never sleeping. It's like a little computer that is always seeking to understand and gathering new information. And a lot of times we overthink and create these own realities and these own scenarios in our head. Again, what I was talking about, our own perceptions and our own realities based on what has happened in our lives, which may be different from somebody else. So instead of just not communicating or letting things fester, we have to kind of come to a place where we are free enough to communicate. And it comes from a place of vulnerability, because you put yourself on the line when you are letting someone know they hurt your feelings, or that you're angry, or that they crushed you, or that they broke your heart, or whatever the case may be. And not every conversation or communicating is about something bad that has happened or somebody has hurt you in some way. But a lot of us do deal with this. So, but what I'm trying to say is we can cut out so many buildups, so many arguments, if we are actually trying to understand where the other person is coming from in an authentic way, without trying to push our point, because the other person is receptive and hearing your point. So we can meet in the middle and communicate, right? That's the whole essence. You can't have, a lot of people say, like, just like you can't have a relationship without love, you can't have a relationship without trust, you can't have a relationship without respect, you can't have a relationship without communication. Again, whether it is romantic, platonic, with your family, whatever the case may be. And I also pulled cards, supporting cards for this message, and the overall energy of what I'm seeing for the cards in this message is that, again, the energy of our thoughts is so fast and so like literally like electricity. It comes in so fast, we can overthink so fast that we have to really remain grounded and realize just because we're coming up with a scenario in our head does not mean that that is truth. We have to kind of stay here on the ground and realize that not everything that comes into your head is truth, is authentic, okay? As well as the cards that I pulled was the Four of Swords, the Sun, Two of Pentacles, Yamea, Salamanders, and the Six of Air. Now, what I'm really saying within these cards, especially when I look at the Four of Swords, and this card is all about meditation, it just is really speaking of the fact that oftentimes, oftentimes, a lot of times, we don't even understand to the full core of how we feel and what we want to express because we haven't given ourselves the time to kind of go over it and see how we genuinely feel, because we will get angered by something or feel sad about something and we know we're upset and we know we're hurt on a surface level. But what is it underneath it all? Is it humiliation? Is it embarrassment? Is it betrayal? How did that betrayal make you feel? To the core, to the authentic core. Because, and we have to, again, kind of go in this space where we are seeking to understand and seeking to understand ourselves. Because one, when we understand ourselves and we understand where we're coming from, we can express that. We know what's going on for us. So hopefully the other person does too. Now, I'm not saying that just because you are communicating authentically, somebody else is going to communicate authentically with you. No, I'm not saying that. I hope that they are. I hope for you that they are. But if you're communicating authentically, at the end of the day, there's nothing else that you can do to make anything different. And you're literally giving it your all. But anyways, we're taking this time, and you can kind of see here that there is an hourglass here, and he is taking the time to receive the clarity that he needs on his own emotions for what has happened. See, there is even a little raven, well, it's not little, but a raven in the background. Birds are messengers. This is communing with spirit. This is communing with your higher self. This is communing with your inner child, your wounded child. Okay, this is communication with aspects of yourself to figure out what the fuck is going on within you before you start communicating with somebody else. Before you, I feel like this, I feel like this, I feel like this, I feel like this. And then by the end of the conversation, you're freaking going off on a tangent. And then you realize at the end of it all how you truly felt. The goal is to gain this clarity before you go to communicate, so you can then have clarity. And you see these two people within the Sun card are dancing and happy and in merriment. One, the sunflowers behind them indicate that there is strength here. It takes strength to communicate. It takes strength to be authentic. It takes strength to let people know what it is that's going on, especially when you are in a hurt fashion, because when we get hurt, people don't like to feel pain, and they will transmute that into something else. It takes a lot of strength and dedication to yourself and another person, but yourself and the types of relationships that you want to have to be able to communicate. But you need the clarity. You need to know what's going on authentically to the core, because then after that, you then can balance yourself and push forward and push to move forward. You're staying on top. Literally, she's staying on top of her emotions. She knows what's going on. She knows if a wave is going to come up that will knock her off this little bike thing that she's on, that she's riding across the water. If a wave comes up that is indicating a flare of emotion or something that is coming up from underneath the surface, she's seeing it. She can see. She's looking forward. She wants to stay balanced. So when this rise comes up, she's going to deal with it and go back to this point and see what it is that it's trying to tell her. This is a process or a ritual or a routine that needs to be started and nurtured. And really coming in connection. It's a lot of it is, and you wouldn't, well, you may think, but some may not think that communication has to factor in with so much emotion. And it really does, because our emotions are what blocks communication, besides the fact of our own level of perception and how we're seeing things. You need to be able to be in a space where you're nurturing your relationship dynamics. Okay. And when we are looking at the salamanders card, we can see here that it's not about logically how you think things should go, and it's not about how you emotionally think things should go. Within a relationship, things are not, you can't predict what's going to happen. You can't predict, the changes or flux in energy. You can't predict, like, is somebody having a bad day and accidentally took it out on you? Like, you don't know what's going to happen and you can't just say, okay, like, logically we have to do this, or emotionally we have to do this. It's kind of seeking and like literally strategizing on how things work within your relationship dynamics and nurturing the fact that sometimes it's trial and error. Okay, this did not work this time, so now we're going to try to communicate in a different way. People communicate in different ways. Okay, not everybody communicates in the same way, but the initial goal is the Six of Swords, of leaving a place that is of turmoil and chaos and moving to a place of cooler, like calmer water. Or like in the case of these birds, they're leaving from somewhere that would be potentially cold and going somewhere that's more warm. Because what is cold essentially? Cold is uncomfortable. It is barren. It is like nothing's growing. It's dead. Where we're warm and we're comfortable, we see growth and things growing out of the earth and maturing and developing. Okay, so when we're in a more comfortable energy, a more light energy, we can communicate better. But I'm also feeling really pulled to share the fact of the walls that we have put up and how that hinders our communication within our relationship dynamics. Because when we are having we've been through all this trauma, we've been through all of this pain, we have our own perceptions and all of that, and we don't want to feel that pain again. Why? Because it's pain. It's not like it was something that felt good. It was something that made you cry. It was something that was detrimental to your confidence or your like the level of self-doubt that you may have after the fact, or whatever the case is. That when we are, it's the realm of vulnerability is what I'm trying to express. And for so many of us, vulnerability can be a very, very ugly word. Why is that? Because it makes us feel weak and open and susceptible. Now, I agree with being open and susceptible, but not weak, because true vulnerability is strength. Because it is hard to get there, especially after you have been drugged through the mud and been taken for granted, lied to, cheated on, manipulated. Okay. And we've all been there. Okay. But if you have these walls built up, when something happens and you get triggered, you automatically go back to that trauma loop. And then you take that as what the situation is. And that potentially can destroy your relationship if you are not careful. So my point being is that the walls that you are putting up is actually hindering the communication, because those walls are blocking you from expressing some things that are deep down in your heart. And when we continually feel like we can't, sorry, I had an interruption. But, anyways, so like I was saying, vulnerability is actually strength because our walls and our blocks are literally blocking us from what it is that we want to receive within our relationship because of fear of past experiences and trauma that has happened to us. So, when we have these blocks up, it literally in walls, it's stopping us from receiving what it is that we want to receive and it like giving what it is that we would like to receive in turn, right? So we have to come to a place where are we ready for that? Communicate where you're at, what kind of blocks you have, all of this. So then there's something that can be understood. But within this, we go within the intent to kind of break those down. And then you're like, oh my God, well, what if I get hurt again? What if they're a liar? What if blah, 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 blah? You know what I'm saying? And that's all true and that's all very valid. But we have to understand that as long as your intention is pure and you are 100% authentic within the relationship dynamic, then there is nothing for you to fear. Not that you might, like, you may get like messed over and somebody may be lying, but at the end of the day, that's not on you if you're coming from an authentic place. Cut that out, cut that energy out. Don't worry about why you weren't good enough or what they got going on because it's probably something that they haven't healed within themselves, and move on. You don't have to take that into how it could be your fault or whatever. As long as you're communicating authentically from the start, this is where I'm at, this is what I need. And when you have issues, you are communicating and like clear authentic communication is your goal the whole time across the board, then that is, you've done everything that you can do and there's nothing more to be done. So if somebody does deceive you, if somebody does lie, I need you guys to understand that that is not on you, because for a lot of us that is what is holding us back from the type of communication and true vulnerability that we need within the relationship dynamic. Okay. Now, I hope that this message was very beneficial to you guys. If you feel that you need a reading specifically for yourself, please do not hesitate to contact me. I'd love to work with you all.